The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
You are now tuned in to the PA Power Podcast, featuring Jeff Upson and Eric Knopsynder. PA Power Wrestling. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
What's going on, wrestling fans? You're now tuned in to the PA Power Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Upson, joined as always by Eric Knopsynder, and this is edition number 2 here for the state tournament preview. We did AA, and now you got some AAA previews coming your way. So, Eric, this is it, man.
Yeah, such a big week. We got to go with 2 podcasts to preview all the action that we're going to see this week in Hershey, and just can't wait to get it started.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And actually, this is my third podcast, Eric, because I did a podcast with Greg Warnock on the War Up podcast, which is featuring mainly looking at the WPIAL tournament. We had Jack Bloomer on, a guy who we're going to talk about here in a little bit when we go to 152. But yeah, it's overdrive right now. We're just, we're running on fumes right now.
and we got a big week ahead of us, so we got to pick it up.
Can you imagine what it's going to be like on Sunday morning? Man, Sunday morning at the end of this, I'm just like done. I'm just cashed out.
What have you heard anything? Is there a big snowstorm coming? Are we going to get snowed in there?
Yeah, that's what I heard. So I was getting multiple text messages. Of course, meteorologist Mark Billett texted me and said there's a snowstorm coming, and I believe he said he was getting his dog sled ready. But yeah, I mean, I'm coming from the west. You're coming from sort of the west as well, but a little bit higher up in the mountains. So yeah, I don't know. And of course, my dad texted me as well saying that there was a big storm coming. He's always concerned about driving in the snow. But yeah, you never know with Pennsylvania, weather and wrestling. It just kind of expect the unexpected.
Well, and you never know what you're going to get at the state tournament. I've been there whenever they're, just snowing, blowing, freezing temperatures. And then I've been there when it's like 65 and sunny. So you're just not quite sure what you're going to get that final weekend in Hershey.
Yeah, it's always a weird time. And it's just, you see some guys walking in with shorts on. But then again, a lot of wrestling fans, they'll walk in with shorts on when it's minus 20 out. They just don't care. So let's start out. We're going to go through AAA. We're going to look at the brackets. Again, we're about 83% sure that these are the correct brackets.
Yes, they haven't been changed.
They haven't been changed.
Nearly 24 hours, so that's a good sign.
So, and by the way, we are kidding. 100% sure these are correct brackets because we've done the calculations for the prestige points for these 5 regional champions. So There's no errors on our end. There's no errors that I've seen since the PIAA released version 6.0. So we should be good to go. So we're going to start in at 106 in AAA. And right at the top here, we got Curtis Phipps from Norwin. He's been ranked number 1 all year. He comes in undefeated at 36-0. Returning state medalist from last year at the same weight. So he's got to be the favorite here.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I mean, really, this the Whitfield field looks pretty strong to me here. You saw it last weekend, him taking on Herrera. Is that something pretty good match in the finals there?
Oh, it was a great match. It was decided on the penalty point, actually. Herrera gave up a point for tossing Phipps feet over back and just kind of brought him down in a weird way. So there was a penalty point for that. But Phipps, Herrera pushed him. Herrera looked really good throughout the entire tournament. And if you listen into the War Up podcast, we talk a lot about him. So I was very impressed with the way he wrestled. But Phipps, I think it was good for him to get pushed because I talked to him after the finals and he was not happy. He was not a happy camper. He kind of stormed off the mat and that's good for a guy who wants to be better than he is. So Phipps, I think he's kind of the guy to beat here, in my opinion. I think he's a pretty strong favorite. But as you said, the WPIAL has a few guys. Like you said, Ali Herrera from Seneca Valley, a freshman, a little bit undersized, but he's coming into his own. And really, I think Herrera is going to have a really tough first-round match with Adam Jacob out of East Pennsboro. This is a guy who's a sophomore, 30-8 on the year. He kind of got upset in the District 3 semifinals by Aiden Lewis, but he comes back to take third. So I think that's a really tough first-round match here.
Well, looking at it, I mean, Phipps, even though he's the top seed, he certainly didn't get any breaks as far as the bracket goes. Just looking from last weekend's rankings, he could get Andrew Brest of General McLean in the quarterfinals, who was ranked third last week.
Yeah,
he lost in the regional final to Matt Sarbo, but certainly not an easy quarterfinal matchup there for Phipps potentially.
No, that top half is pretty full of some talent. As you said, Andrew Brest is up there. He's a junior. I saw him throughout the year at King of the Mountain. He looked really good. Brendan McBride from Coatesville. I think that's a really good first round match with Andrew Brest and McBride, but also Matt Mayer and Matt Vulock. Matt Vulock, the younger brother of Ryan Vulock.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Out of Pope John Paul. I think this is a really good matchup. Matt Mayer's a freshman, but he is coming down to 106. He had beaten out his teammate Nate Lackman, who had been as high as number 3 in the state all year. So I think that's a big-time matchup on the top half. And then, of course, you have Ben Mon from Cumberland Valley, who was the South Central Regional Champion, another guy who comes down from 113. He has some wins over some quality guys, including Christian Fisher from Mifflin County. And, of course, Brady Sherback. Why don't you throw in a senior here as well?
Yeah, that top half is really difficult. And, I mean, you look at the path that a Phipps could have, if and, again, these will change, heading into the state tournament. But going by last weekend's rankings, he was 1. I believe Mon was 2. And then at number 3, you had Brest. So, he could have to go through the top or the 2 and 3 guys just to get to the finals.
Right. And as you said, those rankings are going to be updated. Probably tonight, which is Tuesday night, they're going to be updated. But still, as you said, a lot of top-heavy talent here. Sarbo, and you got to see Sarbo up in the Northwest region. What did you like out of him? I mean, he got a big win in the finals.
He did. He looked very solid, and I think it was a 4-2 match, and then he ended up pinning Brest. So it wasn't like he completely dominated Brest, but he was still winning the match. So it wasn't just that he caught him and was down 9-2 or anything either. So he did. He looked pretty solid, and I'm interested. If we do get that Herrera Sarbo match, but Sarbo's not going to have an easy first round match either. He could have Tyrese Fleming out of Liberty, which could be a difficult one. So we'll kind of see, if Sarbo can keep it going from last weekend.
Yeah, and I like Tyrese Fleming. He's a really solid wrestler out of Liberty, and he finished third in a pretty deep Northeast regional. But that bottom half is a little bit more wide open than I think many projected. As you said, Ali Herrera's on there with Adam Jacob, but you also have Carter Dybert from Franklin Regional, who has a win over Herrero, and he actually is in a first-round match against Kyle Hauserman from Council Rock North. Hauserman's a guy who, for the last 2 weeks before the regionals, defeated Kyle Walterman from Council Rock South, who's been as high as number 3, number 2 in the state. And Walterman's a guy who finished ahead of Dybert, Alejandro Rondon, and also Andrew Brest at the King of the Mountain tournament. He had a great King of the Mountain tournament, but he had a few losses to Hauserman. He comes back, beats him, and now he's sitting on the bottom half with no other than Kyle Hauserman and Carter Dybert.
Yeah, so that's going to be a really interesting one. Like you said, just the prelim match of Hauserman and Dybert, and then the winner of that gets Kyle Waterman. So, even though Kyle Waterman's the second seed, no guarantees that that he's getting through that first round match even.
In addition to that, on the bottom half, you have David Evans from Tuckannock out of District 2, and I think this is a guy who sort of flies on the radar. I mean, I know Tuckannock probably doesn't get the respect that they deserve, but they have a lot of solid wrestlers, a lot of talented guys, including David Evans, who's a sophomore making his first trip to Hershey. I think he's going to pose some problems for those wrestlers down in the bottom half. And as I said, I really don't have a strong favorite as who's going to come out from this bottom half of the bracket.
All right, well, time to put you on the spot now. You like a lot of guys in this bracket. What do you have in the finals?
So I'm going to go with Curtis Phipps on the top half, and on the bottom half, I'm going to go with Kyle Waterman.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
I
actually have Waterman getting upset by Dybert.
Okay, that's not again. I mean, I really could foresee 6 guys that have a legitimate shot of getting to the finals here. I mean, Sarbo, you got Jacob, Herrera, Evans, Dybert, Waterman, Hauserman, who's beaten Waterman twice in the last 2 weeks. I don't know if Dybert's going to get out of that first round. That's a tough first-round match.
That's true.
So
That's true. It could go any way on that bottom rung there. So anyway, I'm going to go Phipps over Herrera in all Whippeal final.
Okay. And I thought I was the one with the Whippeal bias. I like that.
You are.
Well, to be fair, that really is more likely than many other scenarios, just because they've just both been wrestling so well right now. So let's head up to 113 pounds, where again we have a WPIAA wrestler as a top seed. That's Ryan Sullivan from Shaler. The junior is a returning state runner-up. Last year he was a runner-up to Doug Zapp down at 106. He's 38-1 on the season, and he looked really strong throughout the season. Looked good at Powerade. He's looked good in the postseason, so he's got to be feeling confident coming into the state tournament.
Yeah, definitely. Pretty strong resume there that Sullivan has put together in order to earn that number 1 seed.
And the second seed is Will Betancourt from Mannheim Central, who's making his second trip to the state tournament. He's a 2-time South Central regional champion, but last year was unable to find the podium. So this year he has a lot higher hopes. And also Christian Fisher is a returning state medalist. He's on there. And the third seed, fourth seed, Max Mendez from Council Rock South, and your fifth seed is Matt Maloney from Liberty. I look at the top half, and I see a few good matchups. I see a first-round matchup, Jared Coons from Upper Perkiomen and Evan Gleeskin from Easton. I think that's a good first-round matchup. But I also look at Matt Maloney from Liberty and Cole Wilson. Cole Wilson is the second place finisher out of the South Central Regional. He was a state qualifier last year. Matt Maloney making his first trip to the state tournament, but been really solid and consistent throughout the year. And he won a really tough Northeast region. So he got seeded fifth because he has never been to the state tournament before, but he won a really tough Northeast region.
So you like the way he's wrestling and how he's looking heading into it?
I do, based on the fact that what he wrestled. That District 11 tournament was brutal, and for him to come out, and I think he had a really good regional tournament, but Cole Wilson's not, that's a really tough draw for him to get in that first round. Cole Wilson, a guy who's 34-3 and really battled Betancourt pretty tough in the regional final. So that's a really tough first-round matchup. It's one I'm going to definitely be watching. And then you look at Max Mendez, where he falls. I think he gets Jordan Waters from West Allegheny. And Mendez is a guy I can't really figure out. He's been down at 106 this year. He got beat out by Waterman. Then he comes up to 13. He takes some weird losses throughout the year, but then turns it on in the postseason. I can't really explain how Mendez is doing it, but he's turned around his season, and now he's wrestling so tough in the postseason. He's beat Lucerne from Council Rock North, who is a returning state medalist, twice in the last 2 weeks. So I like the way he's wrestling right now. But again, that top half, there's a lot of firepower there.
Yeah, maybe it's just a situation. Mendez, I haven't actually seen him, but maybe now that he's at 13, he's just kind of growing into it and bulking up a little bit to get up to that and feeling comfortable there now.
Yeah, and another matchup that I'm really looking forward to in the first round, Frankie Benora from Moon, who came into the weekend ranked number 2 in the state. He's a returning state medalist out of the WPIAA. He's going against Killen Delaney from Westchester Henderson. That's a big-time matchup. Delaney's a guy who finished third in the Southeast region, finishing behind Lucerne and Mendez. So I think Benora, he kept it close with Ryan Sullivan this past week. Benora's the same way. He's had a few losses. He lost to Waters a couple times, and he hasn't looked great, but then really turned it on this last week. So he's wrestling tough. So that's a good first-round matchup.
I'm looking down at the bottom half at another Whippeal guy, Kyle Burkholder. Now, he's got a first-round or preliminary round matchup, but if he wins that, how do you think he fares against Betancourt? Is that a pretty close match?
Well, actually, to tell you the truth, Zach Martin's going to be a tough out from the Chamonix as a freshman, but I think he matches up well with Betancourt due to the fact that he's a really lanky 13-pounder, and I think he can cause some issues with Betancourt on his feet. But, Burkholder impressed me this last weekend, taking third. He had a good match with Jordan Waters. He won in overtime. It depends on which Burkholder shows up. Burkholder is a guy who's more than capable of doing well in this bracket. So it just depends on who shows up. And the other match I'm really looking forward to is right above that, Luke Lucerine from Council Rock North and Nick Onia from Pottsville. Lucerine is a guy who, as mentioned, was a returning state medalist, been very high up in the state rankings, and Nick Onia is a guy who won the District 11 championship. He finished ahead of Matt Maloney, but then finished his second, losing to him in the final. So those two went back and forth. So that's a big-time matchup as well.
Jeff, you're looking forward to every match in this bracket. You realize that?
No, I mean, not every single bracket. I mean, most of them. Yeah. I mean, but there's
like 6 of the 8 first-round matchups.
Okay.
There.
All right. I mean, I'm looking forward to it, Eric. What do you want me to say? I mean, there's a lot of good matchups.
What I want you to say,
there's a lot of good matchups.
Who's going to win it?
I think Ryan Sullivan's going to win it. I do. And I think Will Betancourt's going to be on the bottom half. So I think Sullivan and Betancourt will be in the finals, and with Sullivan winning it. That's my pick. That's
what I have. I did have to go over for quite a while Benora and Betancourt in the semifinals there, who we get in that matchup. But I did end up going Betancourt and Sullivan to win it.
Well, you know what? And Betancourt's one of his toughest matches may be Luke Lucerine from Council Rock North. This is a guy he lost to in the state tournament last year. So that's got to be on his mind. I remember seeing that match down at 106, very tight bout, but Lucerine looked really tough. So Betancourt, again, coming in undefeated. But I think he's riding, sort of this talent all the way through, and I think he gets to the finals.
Now, if you're liking the matches at 113, you have to like every match at 120.
Yeah, I mean, there's opening round matches. There's not a whole lot that excites me, but they're
not the preliminary, but the first round matchups I think are phenomenal.
Yeah, there's some good ones. They're not as many as you would expect based on 113. Dougie Zapp from Downtown West is your top seed. He's a returning state champion, but he has some losses on the year that would make him not number one in the state rankings. But due to the fact that he's 44-4 and has that 100% points, prestige points for being a state champion, he is your top seed. Logan Macri from Canon-Mac, a returning state medalist. He is your second seed. Your third seed is Sean Pearson of Nazareth. Fourth is J.J. Wilson, and fifth is Panero Johnson, a freshman at Cathedral Prep. The matches that I'm looking forward to in the first round on the top half, Cam Enriquez from Stroudsburg versus Wyatt Henson. This is a match that happened at Powerade, and it was dominated by Enriquez. Now, both these wrestlers, there was an early on in Powerade because neither one of them were seeded, but Wyatt Henson, younger brother of Jackson Henson, is wrestling really, really strong right now. Enriquez is a guy who's been here before. He was an overtime win away from being in the finals against Sammy Hilligus. He's poised. He was second out of the Northeast region, losing to Sean Pearson, a very tough Sean Pearson. So really, that first round matchup, I think, is a good one.
Yeah, I think that's a phenomenal one. Staying in the top half, I'm not sure that it's going to be a close match between Louis Newell and Panero Johnson, but having seen Johnson last week, he's got some big move capabilities. I think he had 2 5-point moves in the finals, and so he's a dangerous kid. You got to love Louis Newell and how solid he is. So I'm not sure that Johnson can get to that, but he's definitely dangerous.
The one thing that makes Johnson dangerous is he has nothing to lose. I mean, he's a freshman, and I agree with you. I saw him at the team state tournament, and he looked good. He looked sharp, and he looked like he was not afraid to go after it. So Louis Newell should definitely not take him lightly. I do think Louis Newell will make it out of that match. The one I'm looking forward to is if Brandon Cassis gets through Seth Hoops from Octorara, I think him and J.J. Wilson is going to be a good match. That J.J. Wilson looked solid at the District 3 South Central tournament, and him and Louis Newell wrestled at Powerade with Newell winning that. So Newell's got a decent shot to make it to the semifinals again based on past practices. So that could set up a pretty huge matchup with Doug Zapp if those two advance. On the bottom half, there's a few matches that I have highlighted here. Josiah Gear from Cocalico versus Shane Hanson-Ashworth. Hanson-Ashworth had a major win over Brandon Meredith last week in the Southeast Regional Tournament. Josiah Gear is making his third trip to the state tournament, so he's kind of been there and knows the drill. But I think that's a good first-round match.
And speaking of Brandon Meredith, How about him? Because of that loss, he drops all the way down, and he's got a first-round match, preliminary round match against Logan Ninos. And if he wins that, he's got Logan Macri.
Yeah, and both those Logans are tough. Logan Ninos from Northampton, he had a win over Cam Enriquez earlier this year. He finishes 4th out of the Northeast region, a pretty loaded Northeast region. And Meredith has a win over Louis Newell from Seneca Valley. And Macri and Newell battled tough in that regional finals this past weekend. I thought it was a much closer match than it had been in the past. And, Macri, if he gets Meredith in first round, that's a tough one. I think he eases up in the quarterfinals because he's going to get the winner of Portilla and Leanne. I don't think he's going to have an issue there. But Sean Pearson has a win over both Doug Zapp and Logan Macri this year. That was at 126 pounds and was the first tournament of the year. But Sean Pearson has been one of the most consistent, most impressive wrestlers. And I said this down at the Super 32 when we saw him. I thought he looked really sharp, and I think it's starting to really show. So I think we could see Sean Pearson coming out.
That's what I have, actually. I have Pearson winning the bottom half of that bracket, and I've got my pit boy, Louis Newell, winning the top half.
Okay, wow. So you got Louis Newell against Sean Pearson. Who do you have winning it?
I have Newell getting that state title this year.
Wow. So he finishes a runner-up twice. He loses to Macri in the last 3 matches. And you're picking him to win the championship. I like it.
I am.
No, that's not an out. I mean, that's not a bad pick. I think that's
this is an awesome bracket.
It is. It really is an awesome bracket, Eric. You said it. I'm so excited here because it's so wide open. I mean, there are 4 or 5, 6 guys that I think legitimately can win a state title here, which is super exciting for me and for all the fans, really. So you're going with Louis Newell over Sean Pearson. I'm going Logan Macri over Doug Zapp. Okay.
Well, good. We got something different for once. And that's the beauty of this bracket is that any of those guys I don't think are really considered long shots to be there. They all have the talent and the ability. It's just who puts it together on Friday night to get there.
No, I agree with you, Eric. And let's move up to 126 pounds where really everyone is chasing Sammy Hilligus. And really impressed with the way he's been wrestling. He looks so much better than he did at Powerade. Powerade, he looked undersized and not as aggressive. I saw him last weekend at the WPIAA Championships. He looked stronger, he looked thicker, and he looked like a hammer that we saw last year. I really don't see anyone touching Sammy Hilligus. I mean, he pinned Caleb Morris in the finals of the WPIAA tournament. He's firing on all cylinders right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have Sammy as the clear-cut favorite here. He's not an easy path by any means with a possible Dalton Rohrbaugh matchup in the quarterfinals, and then possibly Kenny Herman in the semis. But I think Hilligas at this point has shown that he's kind of at a different level than everybody else right now. Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm looking at the top half. I think that Dalton Rohrbaugh and Tyler McKinney is going to be a good match. I think Rohrbaugh does get through there. Gunnar Fuss from Truman and Cade Balestrini from Shikellamy. I think that's a really good match. Both those guys are super talented. And you got to see Balestrini up the Northwest region, and he wrestled Ed Scott pretty tough. Yeah, he did. He gave Ed Scott it was actually, I think it was tied in the final minute. And the final score ended up not looking that close, but it was a really close match that Ed Scott had to kind of rally to win there in the third period. And you look at Kenny Herman from Bethlehem Catholic. He is a returning state medalist. He's on that top half as well. Look on the bottom half, you got Chris Wright from Central Dauphin, who is your 3rd seed. Ed Scott from Du Bois is your 2nd seed. So Ed Scott sitting there at 33-2 on this year. And that bottom half is dangerous, though. I'm looking at Connor Quinn from Owen J. Roberts and Gabe Willishell from Greater Latrobe. That's a hammer time matchup. Willishell just kind of wrestles without any fear. But Connor Quinn is a national prep qualifier from last year. Kind of had an up and down season. But I think those two are going to have a good first round match. Yeah, and then in the actual first round, not the preliminary round, I like Caleb Morris of Waynesburg and Jagger Condomity of Northampton. Yeah, a freshman versus a senior. And you look at Caleb Morris, this is his 4th trip to the state tournament.
he hasn't won many matches at the state tournament. He has yet to get on the podium. Jagger Condimenti, a freshman who's hungry, finished third in a pretty deep Northeast region, and I think he's looked good. We saw him at Escape the Rock. I like the way he wrestled. So, who are you going to go with here at 126, Eric?
Well, I got Hillegas to win it, and I've got your Central Dauphin boy Chris Wright in the finals with him.
Okay, I have the same thing. I got Hillegas winning it over Chris Wright. Chris Wright just finds a way to win matches. He's a senior. He's experienced. I think he beats Ed Scott, but I think he's going to have to wrestle through Condimenti and Scott to get there, and neither one of those are easy matches. But I just think the senior's just kind of poised to get to the finals. But unfortunately, I don't think it for Chris. I don't think it's enough for Sammy Hillegas. He's too top. He's too tough from top.
Does Caleb Morris get on the podium?
I mean, I would like to say yes. I'm not sure. I didn't go all the way through with the consies yet and how it all. He's more than capable of. I mean, yeah, of course he is. But if it's the same Caleb Morris that showed up the last 3 years at Hershey, then I don't think he is. So he's gonna have to bring it. I mean, you look at the number of returning state medalists and that are here. Dalton Rawball is one of them. Kenny Herman, Chris Wright. You know, those are guys that are going to be tough to get past Ed Scott. So he's going to have to wrestle tough to do it.
All right, moving on to 132. Another Central Dauphin guy here, Andrew Wirt, is your top seed.
Yeah, so Andrew Wirt comes in as the top seed out of the South Central Regional, 41-3 in the year. Patrick Gould from East Stroudsburg area South is your second seed. Colton Camacho from Franklin Regional is your third, and Jeffrey Boyd from McDowell is your fourth. Kind of wide open here too. I mean, you look at 32 and you say, well, who's really the top dog here? You know, Camacho's ranked number one in the state, but he's never gotten on the podium. He had a tough finals match with Nick Coy in the WPIAA tournament. So really, there's a lot of question marks here.
Yeah, and Camacho, I actually have him as one of the big first-round matchups to watch. If Ryan O'Grady gets through that preliminary round, he's a guy that could be a really tough first-round matchup for Camacho. Yeah,
and actually that first-round matchup that you talked about with O'Grady, I think really is going to be a tough match. Caden Moreno from Unionville, he's a guy who spent the last 3 years at the McDonough School in Maryland, and he comes back home to Unionville. So he's kind of unknown in that sense, so we're not really sure. I don't know really what to expect out of him. Ryan O'Grady is a guy who's battle-tested. I mean, wrestling on that Nazareth schedule, you know he's going to be taking some losses, but Camacho is going to have either one of them. I think is going to be tough. But you look also in the bottom half, you got Seth Andrus from Central Mountain and Tyler Williams. Williams really handled Moreno in the Southeast Regional, and Andrus kind of a journeyman, and he's done well for himself at Central Mountain. This is his first trip to the state tournament. Williams, on the other hand, he had qualified as a freshman, was injured his entire sophomore year, so this is his first time back in 2 years.
All right, so who are you picking to get to the finals here, Jeff?
Well, I think on the top half, we're most likely going to see Andrew Wirt come out, but I'm not confident in that. I wouldn't say that's a confident pick because you got Nick Coy and Jonathan Myers. So probably the best first round matchup at 132 is probably going to be Nick Coy and Jonathan Myers. Ben Radner and Devin Britton, I think, are also big-time matchups because I think both of them are just wrestling good at the right time. Radner sort of came out and dominated the Southeast Regional Tournament. He had been up and down throughout the year. So Andrew Wirt's not going to have an easy path, but I think it's going to be Camacho and Wirt with Camacho winning.
Really? See, I went with Central Dauphin here. I got Wirt winning it over Patrick Gould.
Yeah, that's not a bad choice. Patrick Gould has been wrestling really, really solid all year, and he's came out of a strong Northeast region, a 132-pound bracket from the Northeast region that like 6 guys there were ranked in the top 10. I mean, it was just, and you had Jared Papsey who was out because he got injured. I mean, he's a returning state medalist. I mean, it's incredible how deep this weight class was for the Northeast region. So for Gould to win that is saying a lot. So I wouldn't count him out whatsoever.
All right, moving up to 138. Here we've got Seth Colino of Bald Eagle area as the top seed, unbeaten at 34-0.
And at the second seed, you have Ryan Anderson from Becca, and he's no stranger to the Giant Center. He was third last year behind Austin DeSanto and Spencer Lee. Been ranked number 1 in the state. Kind of does what he wants in terms of weight. Kind of bounces around wherever he goes, and he was at 32. Now he's at 38, where he's been for the last few months. He's your second seed. I like the way he's been wrestling. Noah Levitt is a third seed, 40-4 in the year. He was a 2-time state medalist before. Cameron Robinson from Council Rock North, he's a sophomore. He's your 4th seed. And then Paul Fight from Northern York is your 5th seed. So I have a lot of matches here highlighted because 38 is another one where it's wide open, in my opinion.
Yeah, one of the first ones that jumped out at me was Zach Ortman and Jackson Henson on the top half of the bracket.
Yeah, Jackson Henson's a guy who owns 2 wins over Noah Levitt. He's been pretty successful at wrestling Noah Levitt. He did have to forfeit in the WPIAL finals to Levitt due to a slight injury into his knee, so I think he's okay. I think it was more precautionary to hold him out. But Henson is just, he's a hammer on top. He's super tough, gritty, doesn't give up a lot of points, doesn't score a lot of points, but he's tough to beat. And Ortman's a guy, returning state medalist. He beat Luke Kemmer twice last year at the state tournament, so he knows what he's doing. And Seth Colino, kind of a guy who's under the radar, even though he's a state medalist. He's going to Lock Haven. He's undefeated this year. He won the King of the Mountain tournament. I think that quarterfinal round match with the winner of Henson and Ortman, that's a hammer matchup. Really looking forward to that.
Yeah, that one, as you said, either Henson or Ortman versus Colino, definitely a great quarterfinal there. I'm interested in another first round matchup down there. One of the freshmen that you turned me on to with the top incoming freshman report, Ty Linsenbigler of Hempfield. And he's got to get past Nick Lilly of Downingtown West in the preliminary round. But if he does, then he's got Cameron Robinson there in the first round, and that's a potential pretty good matchup for a Southeast Regional champ to face a guy like Linsenbigler in the first round.
Yeah, so Linsenbigler, this is an interesting matchup because he beat Nick Lilly 1-0 at the PIAA tournament in December, and that was really the first big win of his career. That's what really propelled him into the state rankings. So it's interesting how it comes back around, and now his first match is over a guy he already beat. So he's got to feel good about that. But if there is a regional champion that I think could be beat early, it's Cameron Robinson. It's not taking anything away from him, but it's sort of in a tough position there because you have Paulie Fight from Northern York, who, by the way, is wrestling one of the best seasons that he's had. This is his second trip to the Giant Center, and he has his hands full in that first round with Nathan Stefanik of Nazareth, who's been as high up as 45, 52 this year wrestling, and that's a hammer matchup between Paul Fight and Nathan Stefanik. So that top half is kind of brutal with Henson, Colino, Fight, Ortman. It's just a lot.
Yeah, Ryan Anderson could have a potential difficult match in the first round there, even as the second seed. He's got the winner of Tim Hritzko of Cannon McMillan and Nathan Swartz of Hollidaysburg. Hritzko's a guy that has been pretty impressive throughout his career.
Yeah, and he has a win over Jackson Henson. He beat Jackson Henson in the sectional tournament. Henson then avenged that loss in the WPIAL tournament, but that's still a really tough first-round matchup. I got to go with Ryan Anderson here. We saw him major decision Noah Levitt at the team tournament. He's tough. There's no way about it. He's just really, really aggressive. He's in your face. He's got heavy hands. He uses his head. I like the way he just wrestles. So I think what I have, Eric, is Ryan Anderson over Jackson Henson in the finals. Who do you got?
That's exactly what I have as well, is Anderson over Henson, assuming Henson is healthy at this point.
Yeah, and that's a big question mark. If he is healthy, I think he gets there. Seth Colino, though, is really a guy who's, I think, going to pose a lot of issues for him. Same with Paulie Fight. Just 138, again, like we said before, it's just wide open, which I love because you really don't know. There are some weights here where it's kind of like, well, we know who's going to win it, but 38's fun. 45 is one of those. Sammy Sasso, 145.
Yeah, I think we can go ahead and pencil Sammy in for both of us.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. But you look at 45 and where people are. Kobe Ho from Du Bois is your second seed. He's on the bottom half. Micah Hoffman from Northern York is your third. Cam Connor from Kiski is your fourth seed. Ryan Vulak from Pope John Paul is your fifth seed. Which Pope John Paul's Vulak, he doesn't get any prestige points for finishing as a state medalist 2 years ago because he was ineligible last year. So he's kind of thrust into that position as a fifth seed.
Yeah, some really interesting ones here as well. Cole Handlovic, we had ranked fourth last week, and he's got a guy, Alex Hornfeck from Mars, who's been pretty impressive this season. Yeah,
Hornfeck really impressed me at the WPIAA tournament. He avenged a loss to Nick Acuna, who was a returning state medalist. He pretty much dominated him. So Hornfeck is a guy who's making his first trip to the tournament, and he's going to have Cole Handlovic right off the bat. That's not an easy match for him. I look at some other matches. Ryan Vulak and Garrett Rigg is a good one. Tate Nichter and Logan Long is a good one. Nick Acuna and Evan Wadding from Penn Ridge, also a good one. You look down at the bottom half, and the first round matchup between Jackson Erb and Jameyer Oaks from Scranton, I think that's a good first round matchup. But Kobe Ho, I like where he's sitting because he has a win this year over Job Chisco from Penn Trafford. So he's got to feel pretty good on that bottom half.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. As you said, he beat Job at POWERADE. And so I know that was really kind of Colby Ho's coming out party that he looked really solid at POWERADE and impressed us there. Can he come through that bottom half? Does he beat Chisco again? Can he get through to the finals?
Yeah, I actually think he does. I have Sasso over Kobe Ho. So what do you have?
I'm going with Chisco this time.
Okay, that's not a bad pick. I mean, he's definitely more than capable of doing that, but I think it's the bottom half is obviously a little bit more wide open because I think Ryan Vulak could be considered the second best wrestler here, but he finds himself in a kind of a situation where he's going to run into Sammy Sasso in the semifinals if he makes it there. So, but Kobe Ho, I mean, people have been kind of sleeping on him for a while. I mean, I think he really impressed me at POWERADE. I know he impressed you as well. The way he
did. He called us out too.
He did call us out, and I told him to pipe down. So he didn't call. He called the seating committee out, which he thought was somehow us. But yeah, he needs to stop looking at Twitter and focus on his wrestling. His wrestling's been pretty good, so I have to give him props for that. Going up to 152 pounds, another weight that is extremely wide open, and there's a lot of bracket busters here because coming into the regional tournaments, Luke Hemmer from Hempfield, who bumped up from 45, was your top ranked wrestler. He goes down, and now Gage McClanahan from Baltimore area, who's a sophomore, is your top seed because he was a returning state medalist from last year. And then Clayton Ulrey from Lower Dolphin is your second seed. Dan Mancini from O&J Roberts is your third. Luca Frenzy is your fourth. And Jack Bloomer, the Giant Killer, is your fifth seed. I think I have the entire bracket highlighted here, Eric. It's just yellow.
I was going to say, where do you even begin here?
Well, let me just tell you this. My entire bracket is yellow. And let me tell you what I don't have highlighted. That may help you out a little bit better. I mean, this is a super, super exciting weight class for many reasons. One of them is because it is so wide open. And really, when I say there's 10 wrestlers here that can win a state title, I really do think there's 10 wrestlers here that are legitimately able to win a state title. And I don't know where to start, so I'll start from the top. Gage McClanahan is a guy who was a sophomore. He actually lost to Trey Kibe a week earlier at the District 6 tournament, but he comes back and beats the freshman in the Northwest Regional Finals, Eric. Tell us a little bit about that finals match.
Yeah, that was a great one. I think they've actually I think that they were 1-1 going into that. And McClanahan able to come out on top there this time. So he's got a 2-1 edge there, but definitely a series that's gone back and forth. And I think you put those two together, 10 times, you could easily come out 5-5.
Yeah, and you got on the top half Eddie Hay and James Lido from Lower Marion. I think that's a good first-round matchup. Dylan Shealy, Dylan Reinhart from Gettysburg, another hammer matchup between two young wrestlers. Jack Bloomer, he took out the number 2 ranked wrestler in the state, Brock Godson, then takes out number 1, Luke Hemmerer, in the semifinals. Jack Bloomer's a sophomore, and he's sitting pretty.
He is. Got a first-round matchup with Stefan Mayo of Muhlenberg. And then, possibly he wins that. Possibly Luca Frenzy of Bethlehem Catholic in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, that first-round match between Jack Bloomer and Stefan Mayo is going to be a fun match. Mayo is just he's so talented from his feet. I mean, he's long, but he's not afraid to go after it. I like the way he wrestles. He's always in matches, and he had Clayton Ulrey beat. He lost. He ran out of gas. So I think he's going to cause some issues to Bloomer, but Bloomer, I mean, it's hard to go against him after the way he wrestled at the WPIAA tournament. Luca Frenzy is a guy he wrestled at the PIAA team tournament, and if you remember that match, Eric, Frenzy was in on a leg, and Bloomer went to fight hands, and his head collided with Luca's head. They put him through a concussion protocol, and he did elect to continue wrestling, and then Bloomer pinned him. I don't think it was a full strength Frenzy when he pinned him, but that's a really big time match there. So that top half, I mean, that was only the top half. We haven't even touched the bottom yet.
Yeah, and in the bottom half, you've got, as you said, Clayton Ulrey, your second seed, and Daniel Mancini of O&J Roberts is your third seed. So pretty good there. And I like this William Evanitsky, Trey Cobb matchup in the first round. Evanitsky from Scranton, 41-1. Yeah. And Cobb, as you said, has already split with McClenahan.
Yeah, this is a really interesting bottom half of the bracket. So Dan Mancini from O&J Roberts actually has a win over Gage McClenahan. He beat him at the Kingdom Mountain tournament. So that's something you should note. And also, you got Luke Kemmer here sitting down as the third place finisher out of the Southwest region. He got Drake Brenzii from Chambersburg in the first round. Then he's going to feed right into Dan Mancini, which is no easy match. William Avensky from Scranton, he came in undefeated to the Northeast region, got upset by Lenny Pinto, a freshman out of Stroudsburg, which was pretty surprising because I thought Avensky was definitely a 1 or 2 ranked wrestler. And now he's going to have Trey Cobb, who you mentioned is really, really tough and really impressed me at Powerade. So I really don't know what to expect here.
Yeah, this is there's just so many ways you could go with this bracket.
And there's a lot of young talent here. You got Cole Spencer and Lenny Pinto, both freshmen wrestling at 152 pounds. Spencer is a guy who came into the WPIAL finals, upset some guys to get there. Pinto, likewise, very solid freshman, obviously, with that win over Avensky. And then Clayton Ulrey, kind of the guy who people tend to forget about. He lost to Luca Frenzy at the Escape the Rock tournament, and Frenzy then lost to Avensky in the final. So we have a lot of familiar opponents here. A lot of these wrestlers have seen each other this year, which makes it even more exciting.
Yeah, everybody goes back and forth here. You know, guy A beats guy B, who lost to guy C but beat guy D. You know, it's just really, really difficult to kind of figure out where to go here.
All right, Eric. So let me hear it. Who do you got coming out?
I am gonna go.
You're struggling for this one.
I am. Because, you know, I thought Kemmerer would be a pretty solid pick, but you got the upset last week. You know, you've got Clayton Ulrey sitting down there. I like Bloomer in the top half, and I think I'm going to go another WPIAL final. I'm going to go Luke Kemmerer.
And who do you have winning over Luke Kemmerer and Jack Bloomer?
I'm going to take Kemmerer this time.
Okay. No, that's a good pick, I think. I mean, you look at it, and like I said, there's legitimately 10 guys that I think have a chance to win here. I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to go Avensky from Scranton against Bloomer from Kiski, with Avensky winning.
All right, we got to ask him how you pronounce it, because I go Evanitsky and you go Avensky. So we got to catch up. We just got to catch up with William and Hershey and get the correct pronunciation.
I interviewed him after Escape the Rock, and I said Avensky and Evanitsky and either one of them, and he said it was fine. He said it's all good. You worry too much. Eric.
Yeah, things like accuracy are kind of important to me.
Well, yeah, it's because you're weird. I'm
all right. So what was your pick again? I got so lost on the pronunciation. Who did you have winning it?
The guy whose name you can't pronounce. I have him winning over Jack Bloomer.
Okay.
Is that
so we both took Bloomer to get there, and both took him to lose.
It's hard to pick against Bloomer after what I saw him do at WPIL. So, yeah, that's going to be 52 is probably my most anticipated bracket of the tournament, in my opinion.
And if you were doing like a confidence points, ranking weight classes by how confident you are who's going to win it, yeah, that would be
that's a 0.
That would be the lowest one.
Really, I mean, anyone could. I mean, Stefan Mayo could win that. I mean, seriously, I mean, Trey Kibe can win that. I mean, he's beaten the top seed. It's just so wide open. So yeah, that's a 0 confidence pick. But that's not the case here at 160 pounds. Carter Starocki from Cathedral Prep. He's a returning state runner-up. He's 42-0 in the season. He's your top seed. Zach Hartman from Bell Vernon. His only loss in the season is to Carter Starocki in the PAP41 finals. He's your second seed. AJ Wilson from Solenko is your third. Mikey Lewis from Becca is your fourth. And Patrick O'Neill from North Penn is your fifth seed. I don't have a ton of matches highlighted here because I think, unlike some weights before us, I'm pretty confident in top 3 or 4 here.
So you're going Starocki 1.
Hartman 2.
Do you have Garrett Ninehouse in the semis?
Yes, I do.
Against Starocki?
Yes.
A rematch of their dual meet?
I do. I have Starocki against Ninehouse in the semifinals, and I have Wilson versus Hartman in the other semifinals with Hartman winning. So, I mean, there are some first-round matches that excite me. Don't get me wrong. I don't see as much openness as we've seen in other weights. I think Luke Stout and Ray Martin, depending on what, Luke Stout has looked good, but he's also made some kind of boneheaded, moves, mistakes. So I'm trying to figure out which Luke Stout's going to show up. He could easily find himself in the quarterfinals. Jacob Burgett from Scranton, another guy who I think is capable of making the semifinals. And you look at, on the bottom half, though, Zach Hartman, I think, is not going to have any issues getting into the semifinals. So, again, just a lot less openness than some other weights.
Yeah, I think probably the top 3 or 4 have kind of separated themselves. I think Carter Starocki has really kind of put himself at the top there, and then a little bit of a gap between 2, 3, and 4, and then a bigger gap between the rest of the bracket.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And, Nick Delp as well in the top half against Anthony Hinson, I think that's a good matchup, but of course the winner goes into Carter. But as you said, Carter's really separated himself, and I just love the way he wrestles. He's just so intense. He's so strong. My gosh, he looks like he could wrestle 82. He's so strong. Unfortunately, I just think but Hartman, I mean, don't count out Hartman. I mean, Hartman is really, really tough.
How was that Powerade final?
It was you were there, Eric. You don't remember?
I don't remember.
It was close. It was really close. Starocki scored a takedown in the third, I believe, to win it. But I mean, it was a slugfest between these two, and I think it would be again, which I do think it's going to happen. So, but I just think Carter, having been in that finals before, and I just think he's ready to go. I think he's ready to win one. Not saying Zach Hartman can't, because I think he can. But I got to go with the guy who already won it.
Speaking of a guy who already won it.
Yeah. 170 features Trent Hidley from Mifflin County. He's 39-0. What more do you need to know about Trent? He's your top seed. Luke Nichter from Chambersburg is your second seed. Cade Wilson from Nazareth is your third. Scott Joel from Bell Vernon is your fourth. And Max Hale from Downtown West is your fifth seed. I look here, and obviously this is all Trent Hidley. I mean, he's just on a different level.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be really hard for anybody to push Trent the way he's looking.
I look at the top half, and I think Ben Root and Max Hale should be a good matchup. If there is going to be a top regional finisher to fall down, I think it's Max Hale to Ben Root. Cole Painter, I think, is a solid wrestler. Scott Joel, though, has been wrestling tough. I think I have Scott Joel coming out to the semis against Hidley. On the bottom half, though, Cade Wilson has just been really impressive. He's wrestled up as high as 95 most of the year, and he bumped up for the team for Nazareth. He's just, I mean, he's insane the way he wrestles. He's so tough from top and from neutral. So I really like Cade Wilson, and I think he gets to the finals against Trent Hidley.
Yeah, that's a pretty good pick. 40-4 at Nazareth. You know you're doing something right with the schedule that they face. Do you have Nichter getting out there to the semifinals?
I do. I have Nichter over Hammett, and then Wilson over Nichter, and Hidley over Joel. So Hidley's he's the guy. He's the return, state champion. There's a reason why he's ranked as high as he is in the nation. So Cade Wilson is going to be, I think he's going to be a guy to come out of that bottom half. What is that? What do you have? Who do you have?
It is. It's exactly what I have. I have Hidley over Wilson.
I figured you would have followed my lead.
What can I say, Jeff? You know what you're doing sometimes.
Sometimes, not often. You look at 182 pounds, and Josh Stillings, he is your top seed. He wasn't for a while, but somebody informed somebody at the PIAA and let him know that he's a returning state runner-up, so he gets 95 points. So he is now the top seed. He's 27-1 from Penridge. Your second seed is Luigi Yates from Cathedral Prep. Your third seed is Blake Barrick from Big Spring. Your fourth seed is Damon Moyer from Liberty. And your fifth seed, this is a wild one, Christian Chiquette from Butler. He upset Tim Wallace in the WPIAL finals. That was a wild match.
Yeah, Tim Wallace, a guy that we've had on the podcast before. He really impressed us at Powerade. And, yeah, I was kind of surprised to see that he lost to Chiquette in the WPIAL finals there. Yeah,
it was kind of an interesting match because Wallace made a kind of a dumb attempt at a throw in the first period, and I thought it was an ill-advised throw, and he ended up giving up 2-2, and then Chiquette sort of just laid on his belly in the second period, and then Wallace was down in the third, so he had to go for broke again. It wasn't a smart match by Wallace, and I think he knows that. Wallace is a guy who has finished third in the state last year, so he knows what he's doing. But that bottom half now is kind of loaded. You got Blake Barrick, Max Shaw, Jeremy Seymour, and Luigi Yates, who I think is one of the more consistent wrestlers here.
Yeah, so you talked about it a little bit. You get Seymour and Wallace in the first round. Who do you like there?
I like Wallace. I think he bounces back strong at the state tournament. I mean, it's hard to go against a guy who's been so successful on the state level. I think that quarterfinal round matchup, if Wallace does make it and Yates makes it, I think those two are going to have a really tight battle. But I think Blake Barrick is going to be waiting in the semifinals. I do think Blake Barrick makes it to the semifinals. So on the top half, I obviously have Stillings coming out. I've been wanting a Stillings-Wallace match for a long time. I thought we were going to see it at Escape the Rock, but it didn't happen. So the question is how far can Christian Chiquette take this role? How far can he go?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see it going any further than the semifinals, I'll tell you that.
Well, I mean, yeah, I would be surprised at that. But Damon Moyer as well. I mean, he's a guy from Liberty who was a state qualifier last year. He's down to 182. He's been up at 95 for many majority of the year. So, yeah, I don't know. It's definitely not as wide open as some others, but it's still, I mean, outside of Stillings, after Wallace's loss, you kind of scratch your head and you're like, well, okay, well, who is going to come out? So I'll ask you, Eric, who do you have coming out?
Wallace.
Against?
Stillings.
And who's winning?
Stillings.
Okay. I'm following your lead. I'm gonna take Stillings over Wallace. I think Wallace bounces back, and I think we're gonna get the matchup that I've wanted all year to happen. Moving up to 195 pounds, Eric, and this is a match that you saw happen over the weekend up the Northwest region. This was a 1 versus 2 here. Cole Urbis from State College, he has a big-time win over Luke McGonigal from Clearfield, who was a state runner-up last year. That was a 1-0 match. Tell us a little bit about that match.
Great match. Pretty even on their feet. Obviously, nobody really in deep or able to get too much going in the first period. In the second period, McGonigal chose down, and I give all the credit in the world to Cole Urbis. He put a great ride on for that second period. I think probably at least 3, maybe 4 times. McGonigal hit nice Granby rolls, and Urbis was just able to ride through it with him each time, keep him down, really frustrate him there, and ride him out that whole second period. And then Urbis was able to escape in the third pretty quickly, I think 10 seconds into the period, escape. So McGonigal had a minute 50 to try to get a match winning or at least go-ahead takedown, and couldn't do it. He got really close the final 30 seconds. His coach told him after a stoppage, he said, "Hey, look, you need your best shot right now." And McGonigal put a really nice single leg on him and got to a point where Urbis is just so lanky and so long. But he was able to sprawl with his right leg. McGonigal was able to lock up a cradle, but Urbis was kind of still in a kneeling position where he hadn't gone over. And since he didn't go over to his hip, there was no 2, even though McGonigal had the takedown or the cradle locked up at the buzzer. So just a great match.
It looked like a great match, and I do think we're going to see that again. You look at that top half, and the match that I have circled is Nate Stein from Blue Mountain versus Ben Fromm from Cocalico. Fromm is a guy who took some uncharacteristic losses in the postseason, but he bounced back to finish second in the region. He's a returning state medalist. Nate Stein, on the other hand, is 33-2, making his first trip to the state tournament, so I think that's a really good first-round matchup. Nate Ansell from Connellsville is making his second trip to the state tournament. He had a really good WPIAL finals against Nathan Mankey, but I agree. I think Urbis comes out from that top half. On the bottom half, you got really some toss-up matches. You get Jake Kozar on the second as a second seed. He's going to most likely, he is, if he wins it, going to get the winner of Nathan Mankey and Robert Spezza. Spezza's a guy who has looked good this year. He had a really good Escape the Rock tournament. He beat Elijah Jones from Boyertown, who is your third seed. So I don't know. The bottom half is a little bit deeper, in my opinion, with Elijah Jones, Jake Kozar, and Luke McGonigal.
Well, and don't sleep on Dorian Crosby down there either from your Cathedral Prep. I mean, he could give Kozar fits, I think, in that first-round matchup, assuming Crosby gets through the preliminary round bout.
I agree with you. Crosby's a guy who I like, and he's so good from his feet. He's got those unders. He really likes to work those underhooks, and he's not afraid to take people to the mat. He's not afraid to mix it up a little bit, if you will, and take a few risks. And I do think he causes issues for anybody he wrestles here in the bracket. And in fact, he wrestled Spezza and beat Spezza in the state tournament semifinal. So yeah, definitely a guy not to sleep on. But who do you have coming out? Do you have a Northwest region rematch?
I do. I've got Urbis and McGonigal.
With Urbis winning again, or?
I think McGonigal wrestles a different match this time. I'm going to go with McGonigal. Okay,
I'm going to go with the same final, but I'm going to have Urbis winning.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I saw a tweet from Luke McGonigal saying, "Hey, this just has me even more motivated." And I don't know, you don't know what that really means, if it means anything, but I do think he approaches it differently, and kind of takes a different tactic, whether that means going down and just finding a different way to get out as opposed to just kind of relying on that Granby, or whether it's going neutral and not worrying about the bottom. We'll kind of see how it goes, but I think it's a little different match this time.
So you know how we had our confidence pick for 152 being like a 0? That 220 is probably like a 1 or a 2. 220 is freaking stacked, man. Oh my gosh. You look at the top seed, you got Ian Edenfield from Laurel Highlands, 30-5 in the year. Is his single man teams just going around and wrestling whoever, wherever he can. Returning state runner up. You got Greg Bensley from Pocono Mountain West is your second seed. He's a returning state medalist. Cole Forrester from Shippensburg, undefeated this year. He's your South Central Regional Champion. He's a returning state qualifier. He's your third seed. Hunter Katka from Sun Valley, a sophomore, 37-1 on the year, returning state qualifier. His only loss on the year, that was to Nate Schoen from Sealands Grove, pinned him in under a minute. This is a freshman at 220. Oh, my gosh. This top half of the bracket, are you kidding me? Hunter Katka, Nate Schoen, Dennis Carras, and Ian Edenfield. I mean, I can't believe it.
Yeah, Schoen is 26-0 in the 5th seed.
Well, I mean, he's a freshman. Last year he was wrestling the PJWs with a torn ACL. So, there's a reason why he's a 5th seed, because he's going up against some senior talent here. I mean, like I said, Hunter Katka, sophomore, has just been dominant, and he got just blown away by Schoen in the finals. How did Schoen look up at the Northwest Regionals?
I was actually doing an interview, so I didn't get to see a whole lot of it. But he tore apart Parker McClellan,
which is he's no easy. That's not an easy win.
Unfortunately, I didn't get to see much of it, but it's that's a pretty impressive win when you do that to Parker McClellan.
Well, if you were at the Penn Manor tournament, you didn't get to see a whole lot of him either, because he just came out and decked Hunter Katka. So there's not a lot of film on him if you're looking to watch it. That top half is just brutal. I look at the Ian Edenfield. I mean, he's just been so strong throughout the year. He's wrestled at Ironman, at Beast, at Escape to Rock. I mean, he's been very, very consistent for a guy who doesn't have a team. Denny Carras from Exeter, I think, is going to pose a problem up top. Schoen and Katka, I think that's going to happen in the quarterfinals. The winner there, man. I mean, Katka's going to be out for revenge, man. I'll tell you that.
That's like a cadet final.
Yeah, it really. I mean, it's a cadet final. You got a 15, 16-year-old versus a 14, 15-year-old at 220 pounds. I mean, these guys are men. Yeah,
phenomenal guys for that size, for that age group.
And then on the bottom half, Cole Forrester, as a guy we had on the podcast when Eric, I put you to the road and I brought in Jeremy Elliott. We interviewed Cole Forrester after he dominated the South Central Regional. He's poised. I mean, he wants that state title. He wants it bad. Undefeated on the year. He's looked tough. But then you have Jake Slinger as well from Upper St. Clair, a state qualifier last year. Really looked good in the WPIAA finals. He gave Edenfield all he could handle. And then Parker McClellan, like you said, from Altoona is also down there. And Greg Bensley, let's throw him in the mix here. He's a return state medalist. So, man, there's just so many good matchups here. It's tough. I mean, and let's go out on a limb here. Nick Chapman from Hatboro Horsham, his only 2 losses are Hunter Katka. So, yeah, he's pretty good too.
Yeah, either one of these brackets have enough guys to make a good 16-man bracket, either half of them. So you put the 2 of them together in a 20-man bracket, and this is going to be a fun one.
So this is my second. So 52 is probably my most favorite bracket. 220 is my second of all the entire tournament. I mean, it's just I can't wait to see who wins this bracket, and whoever does, they're going to have 2 black eyes. They're going to be taped up from head to toe because they're going to be going through a grind. I mean, like just a complete buzzsaw here. Eric, let me ask you, who do you got in the finals?
I have Ian Edenfield, because luckily there's no Florida competition in this one.
Right.
And Cole Forrester.
Okay, I got the same, man. I got the same. Who do you got coming out on top?
Edenfield.
Yeah, I got Edenfield too, and
but he's going to be so beaten up after that trip through it. It certainly wouldn't surprise me to see Forrester win it.
Yeah, but Forrester's going to beat up too, man. He's going to have not an easy task to get to the finals here. I think the top half is a little bit more stacked, but luckily you don't have to wrestle every single man in that bracket. You only have to wrestle 3 of them. So I do think that Cole Forrester and Luke Edenfield will wrestle in the finals. I like Edenfield. He's been to the finals before, so I think that's a factor. You can't take that away. Just being in the finals, it would be his second time there. He lost in a very, very tight match to Brian Kennerly from Upper Darby last year. He was very nearly a state champion, so I think that says something about someone's the way they wrestle. So, again, 220, super excited about this one.
How about heavyweight? Moving on up there, what are your thoughts here? Pretty interesting bracket, I think, with Isaac Reed of Kiski area, your number 1 seed at 19-0. But then you've got Quan DeBow of Cathedral Prep down at number 2. And a guy I know you love, Michael Wolfgram of Central York at number 3.
Yeah, and Michael Wolfgram here, I mean, this is a guy who, second year in a row, he's coming into the state tournament undefeated. He's 36-0 on the year. I like the way he wrestles. He tech fought his opponent in the regional finals in under 2 minutes. I mean, you're talking about a heavyweight who went Spencer Lee style and tech fought his opponent in under 2 minutes. So I really like the way he wrestles, but let's not kid around about it. Isaac Reed is your top, this is the top dog here. He's the one that everyone's out to get. He was a state runner-up last year, 19-0 in the season. His season was cut a little bit short because of a blood clot in his lung, but he's back to full strength, and he had a tough match in the WPIAL finals against Gerald Brown, who is also a returning state medalist. He finished 4th in the state last year. Remember that when the WPIAL went nuts and finished top 4? They went 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we could see another all WPIAL finals here, but a lot of guys here that I think are going to be out to prove themselves. Michael Wolfgram definitely being one of them. Quan DeBow, another one he's just placed at the state tournament in both his years. He's a junior, so he placed as a freshman and sophomore at heavyweight.
Yeah, the top half I think is really kind of clear for Isaac Reed to get through to the finals. I don't see anyone stopping him there. The bottom half, though, is pretty intriguing to me with Wolfgram, with Brown, with DeBow. I'm really not real confident on what's coming out of the bottom there.
Yeah, I agree with you. That top half, I think Garrett Zobel from LaSalle, he was actually a state medalist 2 years ago, but he's your 5th seed. So I think Reed will have a little. I mean, I think he'll be pushed by him, but he finds ways to win. That bottom half, I don't know who the heck's going to come out of there. I mean, Wolfgram, DeBow, and then Gerald Brown. It's really a crapshoot there. So who do you have?
I've got DeBow coming out.
Okay, and so you got DeBow versus Reed.
Yeah, and Reed winning.
All right, I'm going to go with Isaac Reed over Michael Wolfgram.
All right.
So,
all right. You like I said, you've been on that Wolfgram bandwagon since last year when you saw him.
Well, and it didn't work for me last year because he came to the state tournament and he left with 2 losses and he didn't get on the podium. So, for his sake, he wants that to change. And like I said, I saw him wrestle at the regional tournament. He looked sharp. So, I don't know. Again, really, I mean, for heavyweights, they don't get a ton of respect and attention that they deserve, I don't think. I'm really looking forward to this weight in 2018.
Well, and I think heavyweights have the biggest, if you see a guy who starts as a freshman as a heavyweight, even if he doesn't do very well, if he keeps at it by the time he's a senior, there's usually a huge improvement.
Right.
Because it's so difficult to break into the lineup at that weight class as a freshman or a sophomore. So if you're able to go in there and compete as a Wolfgram did, who was 29-12 as a freshman, you see that improve to 35-2 last year, 36-0 now. I mean, it's really a spot where he can come in and kind of take out all those guys that he's been at the same age as, and really show what he can do now at that top 4 level probably.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and Gerald Brown pushed Isaac Reed to the brink. I mean, he basically slipped in the third period and gave up 2. Brown's only losses on the year are 1 at the Beast of the East tournament where he finished 3rd, and then to Isaac Reed last weekend. So Brown's a guy that people are still going to underestimate him even after last year finishing 4th. So and I'm obviously picking Wolfgram, but I would not be surprised if it's Brown or if it's DeBow. It's wide open in the bottom half. So I'm looking forward to it, Eric.
Yeah, I have Brown over Wolfgram and then DeBow over Brown. So
yeah,
either way that goes, not a whole lot in between those 3, I don't think.
No, I agree with you 100%. So Eric, that's going to wrap it up here for the AAA preview. I mean, it's just it's hard to believe it's here, but it is here now.
Yeah, season has just flown by. Some great stuff throughout the season, and just can't wait for this tournament to get started. Obviously, the best time of the year for wrestling fans. Get to go to Hershey and sit through long days filled with just an unbelievable amount of incredible wrestling. So can't wait to get it started.
Yeah, I won't be breathing much fresh air. We'll be stuck inside that Giant Center for about 16 hours a day for 3 days. So that part I'm not looking forward to, but we do it because we love it. So you can stay with PA Power Wrestling for all your wrestling needs, especially for the state tournament. We got previews, we got podcast previews, we got AA, we got the War Up preview, and then of course our buddies over at the college podcast, Mason Beckman, Tristan Warner, they're going to be recapping Big Tens and all the conference tournaments and looking ahead to the NCAA. So if you want your college fix, you know where to get it. You can check out PA Power Wrestling for brackets. We're going to have updated rankings and previews. It's just, we got it all.
And we got some awesome new gear.
We do. We absolutely do. And can't wait to showcase some of them in Hershey. So thanks for tuning in to the PA Power Podcast. We'll see you in Hershey, folks.